Well, welcome. Good afternoon to one and all. We're honored to have you here. I know this is kind of short notice, the last day of the session, and it's still a very busy day. So we're just kind of interrupting our work to come and chat on some developments that have taken place and what we're planning on doing when it comes to the discussion of Medicaid expansion. I'm joined here by President Wayne Niederhauser and Speaker Greg Hughes and the Lieutenant Governor, and honored to be here standing together with them. Let me just mention this session, I'm sure that all of you appreciate, has been a session with many big issues. This is what we would call a heavy lift session. There's a lot of important issues, some complex, and certainly important to the people of Utah. And solving solutions is what we're about here in Utah, with the governor's office working hand in hand with the legislature. And I'm pleased with the progress and successes that we've had and the ability for us to work together. There is one big issue, though, that you all know has been a difficult one for us, and that's this issue of Medicaid expansion, or an alternative to traditional Medicaid expansions. We've talked about it here in Utah. And it's become clear to me, and I think to my colleagues here on the left and the right, that we're not going to be able to find a conclusion in this session that's going to be satisfactory to us all. That's disappointing to me, and I'm sure it's disappointing to them and to many of our colleagues in the House and the Senate. However, there is good news, and the good news is that we're closer than ever to finding a solution to this on behalf of the people of Utah, and something that is this important, that has not only short-term ramifications but long-term ramifications, deserves our undivided attention and a desire to get it right and to get it right together. The division that we seem to have here is certainly not something that we want to have and should not be. And so as we work to represent the citizens of the state of Utah, we need the kind of leadership that will bring us together. And so as of today, I'm pleased to announce that President Niederhauser and Speaker Hughes have agreed to a process that will lead us to a solution in a very collaborative way, and I think will be one that will be appreciated by the people of Utah. Later today, the House and Senate will pass a concurrent resolution that underscores our resolve to, in fact, finish this together. Instead of relying on commissions and task force and others out there, this group of task force is going to be comprised of the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Senate president, the House speaker, and the bill sponsors who we have with us also here today, Jim Dunnigan and Brian Shiozawa. That's going to be the committee. And we are committing here today to work together to find a solution that we'll recommend to the legislature by July 31st, when we will call them back into special session to, in fact, pass a piece of legislation that will resolve this issue. We're going to be able to implement that at that time. And I think the challenge we've faced here, we have so many big issues, and the pressures of discussing all these issues, and 700 plus bills have been introduced, I think has been part of the challenge we faced in actually focusing in on this and getting it right. So the additional time that we have, I think, will lend to a fruitful negotiation, and we'll have the benefit of the decision, for example, for the King v. Burwell lawsuit, which will give us a little better perspective as far as what's going to happen in the Supreme Court, and probably a little better view of the politics that would be surrounding that and the outcome of that decision. We anticipate we'll have continued negotiations as we've had over these past year with the federal government, as this has been kind of a work in progress, and we expect those discussions to continue, particularly when it comes to the two issues that have been the most difficult for us to wrestle with, and that is certainty, predictability of what's going to happen in the future, and also sustainability of how we fund this program ongoing. We're trying to come up with a program that really does sustain itself, and it will be an ongoing program if we're going to do something. So those issues we'll continue to work with the federal government and amongst ourselves. Let me just say that the very nature of the legislative session, with all of its pressures and the scrutiny that we have with the press and so many different and difficult issues, lends itself to us sometimes hunkering down, kind of becoming a bunker mentality, and I think that sometimes inhibits our ability to have discussion and find solution. So I think, again, as we've looked at what we've done, I'll just use an example of our non-discrimination freedom, religious freedom bill. We've taken a very difficult issue. It's been really at the height of everybody's mind for more than just this session. But bringing people together with very different points of view and opinions and coming together with a resolution of that issue. That really is the Utah way. And we're going to draw upon that success and the ability that we've had to come together on that issue, and we're going to do the same thing when it comes about Medicaid expansion. Now, I just want to, again, state what I've said before. We did not create the problem here in the state of Utah. This coverage gap that we see with are based on flaws in the Affordable Care Act and the Supreme Court decision combined that puts us in a difficult situation. But we're here to recommit to the people of Utah that we're going to solve this problem together the Utah way. So with that, I've have an opportunity to maybe have the Senate President and the Speaker to make a presentation here and speak on this thing. My commitment to the President and the Speaker is that we're going to work together. We will find a solution to this difficult issue, and we'll reiterate my commitment, and I know they'll do the same thing to the people of Utah, to serve their best interest as we go forward. So with that, we'll listen to the President and then the Speaker, and then we'll maybe have some questions.
So I'm pleased that we're all standing here today and acknowledging the progress that we have made through the session. Beginning of the session, we didn't know if we would even have any kind of solution. And we have several solutions, or a couple of solutions to look at going forward. Some of the big questions are sustainability, predictability. Those will be a big part of our part of the things that we'll be talking about over the next couple of months. And as far as the Senate is concerned, we're committed to a process here, working with the Governor and the Speaker, our friends in the House, to come up with a solution that works for Utah. Thank you.
We in the House we've been through a lot. We've worked very hard. We started a journey on public policy and Medicaid expansion being a big issue in December in our all-day caucus. We're the new leadership team. We've had a governor for some time. We've had our Senate president. But this caucus is a large caucus. We're young. And we have traveled far in terms of where we started this debate with many lawmakers believing that a wait-and-see approach would be the most responsible here in the state of Utah. We've seen just 4 states in this calendar year decline to move forward in this area. And there was probably a lot of strength in doing that. I'm proud that the House has moved from that wait-and-see approach. And you saw in the product of Representative Dunnigan's bill that we were looking at smart ways, proactive ways to address that coverage gap. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about rancor and not agreeing, but these guys have been each other's bill sponsors to each other's bills. Think about that. Senator Shiwazawa's bills coming to the House, Representative Dunnigan has been his House sponsor. Representative Dunnigan's bill's been going to the Senate. Senator Shiwazawa has been that bill sponsor. And so I want you to know that there has been an incredible amount of work that's been done to get this right. We've got to get it right. We can't make promises that we're not prepared to keep for our constituents that we represent. And that's always been at the heart of what we've been doing up here. Now, we're one of the shortest legislative sessions in this country. 45 calendar days gives us 30-something work days to get this done. I'm proud of the distance we have traveled, but there is yet more work to be done. And we are going to work as a team, and we're going to continue in this effort. And I believe, with the leadership that we have here in the state of Utah, that we will find solutions, sustainable solutions that do better than we are and what we have found here in this session, and do right by our constituents. So I'm excited for the opportunity to work with our governor and with the Senate President, the Lieutenant Governor, and our bill sponsors on this issue. And I guess this is just the beginning. Here we go.
Well, thank you, President and Mr. Speaker. Let me just say, I don't think it is the beginning. It's maybe a new beginning. But as the Speaker has said, you know, we've come a long way in this journey. This is not an easy issue for a lot of reasons. We haven't created the problem. We're going to solve the problem, and we're going to do it in the Utah way. To use my sports analogy, it's like starting at the goal line and having to move the football to the other goal. And we're not just halfway. We haven't scored the touchdown yet, but we're in the red zone. Or if you're a BYU Cougar fan, we're in the blue zone. We're within the 20-yard line, and I think we have the ability now with what we were putting in place here today to actually have the game plan to get it across the goal line. So I, too, want to say that I'm excited about this team that we've put together here, the 6-member team. I think it's historical. I don't know of another time when we've ever had a committee put together that's comprised of the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and we have the 2 bill sponsors that have been involved in this in the beginning. So this is quite a remarkable thing, and we all are committing to the people of Utah. We understand who we represent, and we are here to do the work of the people and find a solution to this difficult issue, and we will by this summer. With that, we'll take any questions.
In the meantime, what are you going to do for coverage? Do people just go without?
Whatever we have in place now, we have in place now. This is a work in progress. Again, the goal line is in sight. We're not stopping. We're going to continue to work together as we've done. We've made significant progress, but we've got to get us all on the same page. You can't get legislation passed, and there's differences amongst Republicans and Democrats, difference among Republicans and Republicans, House and Senate, the governor's office. It's time for us the last 20 yards, we're going to come together to score the touchdown. So I hope the people appreciate that we're continue work. We're not going to say at midnight today it's done. Doing nothing, as we've heard from both the House and the Senate, is not an option, certainly not one for me. We're going to find a solution to this problem by this summer.
Governor, so you're committing to come up to a solution by July 31st, a special session will be called after that. How soon can we expect these people in this population to be on a plan to receive coverage?
I don't know how that would work. Maybe our sponsors would know. Brian, Jim, how that long it would take to transition.
Depending on what the plan is and how closely it fits within the preferred toolbox of the federal government, I think it could happen relatively quickly, and certainly at least a transition plan. So if we can come up with a solution, I think there's a process to have a quick transition if that's something that we desire to do.
Given a green light.
Let me just say, too, July 31st is the deadline. If we can get it done by June 31st, there's nothing that says we have to wait. We're going to try to do it as quickly as we can.
Given a green light that way, how long will it take you to get a waiver from HHS at that point?
This is work that's going to be concurrent. We would hope that once we've agreed here that we already have agreement in Washington, D.C. for the waivers we need.
Governor, can you comment on reports that there was an agreement between the sponsors of the 2 bills, but it was just one that everyone in leadership could not accept? It seems like you were very, very close, but there was something stopping you from planning. I mean,
Well, as you,
sponsors of the 2 bills can come to agreement, why can't
yeah.
everybody else?
Well, you may know something I don't know. The governor doesn't not know everything. But I know there's been ongoing work and discussion and ideas, and so if you can ask that question to the sponsors, I don't know that we've ever had agreement.
Can they address that?
Brian, Jim?
One of the great honors I've had is to work with the governor, the speaker, and Representative Dunnigan, and also the Senate President and Lieutenant Governor on this. And I can tell you that I've spent so much time over in the Majority Leader's office. He was threatening to put a nameplate for me on his door. And so we've had some very productive talks. And I think those talks will lead to substantial progress as we go forth and we'll work out a bill. I'm optimistic. Now, I've said that all along, but I still am. Unfortunately, it'll probably be in June or July that we'll have an endpoint. But there's been some very good, productive talks, and I've frankly been very honored to work with Representative Dunnigan in particular because he has such expertise on this. And so he's educated me on this, and I guess my failure is I didn't do as good a job in educating the House on this. So that's where I'd like to see it go. Thank you.
We have Utah's supermajority represented here today. Was the minority involved in the agreement that you've reached and are announcing now?
You know, I can let the leadership in the House and Senate speak for themselves, but I've had ongoing discussions with the Democratic leadership. I meet with them once a week, just like I meet with Republican leadership, and so there's been ongoing discussions, so they've certainly been a part of the discussion.
Along with that, sir, there's no Democrats on the task force. Are you going to talk to the minority caucus before you go forward with a plan?
I expect we'll talk to a lot of people as we go forward. That we're not limited to who we would bring in and have expertise and testimony. And we'll be talking to the federal government. We've talked to a lot of providers and service health. I can tell you we will not exclude the minority party from this discussion. They'll certainly have an opportunity to weigh in, and we'll keep them apprised, and they'll be a part of the discussion. We're just taking the leadership, the leaders of the House and the Senate, and the executive team, but we certainly will be willing to hear from other people, including the minority party.
When you talk about a new beginning, are we starting from scratch, or is the solution going to be already what we see on the table and put together something?
Well, I don't want to predict the outcome as we're in the middle of the process, but again, my analogy that we're not starting at the 50-yard line, we're not starting the goal line, we're within sight of scoring. And so we just have run out of time. So we're putting a little more time on the clock to allow us to, as we've had great ideas come forward, and there's good ideas on both sides from the House and the Senate, we need to bring those ideas together and find ways to answer some of the questions on sustainability and predictability and those things, which I think we can do. And there'll be probably some compromise involved, and as we work together. But we're getting close. We just don't want to stop. And again, we don't want to have the whistle blow at midnight tonight when we stop and lose all the progress that we've made to heretofore. So we just need a little more time to get this done, and this is what this resolution and our commitments allows us to do. So we'll have something by this summer.
Any guarantees that the federal government is even going to go along with whatever you come up with?
Well, you have the same skepticism that when we started 2 years ago, and we've made significant headway with the federal government. Again, it's a work in progress. We've been able to get a lot of assurances on waivers and conditions that have been met that have never been given in any other state. So I'm very optimistic. We have a track record to show that they are, in fact, listening. And they've said to me, the president said to me personally, if you've got a better way to do it, I want to hear about it. Now, we have to convince people that it's a better way. We all have the same goals here, the same outcomes. We want to serve the people of Utah and get them health care and have them access to affordable health care and help them get a job and get off government assistance. That's all our goals. The only thing we're debating here is the process to do that. Brian?
A couple of questions. First, you worked on this for a long time. You've got the waiver from the federal government. You've had the session. First question is, what makes you think that more discussion is going to come to a conclusion that you can accept? And secondly, is there a benchmark for you in terms of coverage below which you will not go?
Well, again, the discussions go on. We have got a unique situation here where you have the governor, the Senate president, and the Speaker of the House sponsor the bill, experts involved in this that have brought it to this point today. We just are not quite to the goal line. So I have every reason to be optimistic that at this high level of discussion, we're committed to say we're going to solve the problem. We have a deadline, and we're going to solve the problem. We're not going to, we've had a lot of good progress over the last session, the last 44 days and a half, and that's been, nearly a year in its making, from this last session to now, and the work we've done with the federal government. I am very optimistic that we're going to find a solution.
Last question. We got time for one more.
How are you going to sell this to the GOP caucuses, though? I know the Senate is supporting Healthy Utah, the governor's plan, but the House did not. So do you have to, Speaker, take this plan back to your caucus and sell it before there's a special session, before?
Oh, sure. We've met as a caucus today, and we've talked about this way forward and their support. Now, look, you got 63 members of the Republican caucus. You have 75 members of the House. You got some tiny numbers over there in the Senate. That's a lot easier job, okay? No, we've got a broad caucus. And so are we going to have strong opinions on all fronts? Of course we are. And that's always been the nature of the House. We have support for this resolution. We have support in the House to keep moving forward. I want to remind everyone, when you say, let me tell you what the importance of Utah is in this space. There hasn't been a Republican or a red state in 2 years that has expanded Medicaid coverage. There hasn't been any movement by many. We have 4 states whose legislatures declined to expand into this space this year alone. If Utah, and Utah has the leadership to do this, we have to do it right. We have to do it in a way that when we're balancing that budget, we know we can keep those promises, and that's not an easy task. Or we would have seen this happen over the last 2 years. You have 22 states in this country who have not done this, and we're not talking outliers. You're talking large states. Florida, Texas. You have a lot of states. Montana just this week alone. We have the firepower to do something. We really do. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes the perspectives that we share, the constituents we represent, to step forward in the space and get something done. We can do this. We haven't wrapped it up, and we're not all done right now, but this press conference and the resolution will pass in the House and Senate is to point to that direction and that determination to get something done that's good.
But to Brian's point, how will this be any different than all the ideas you've heard all session long that we're talking about?
Well, Lisa, I guess we've heard all the ideas. I guess we can't ask for another consideration from HHS. What we're saying is we don't think all the conversation has been had. We're not here to regurgitate it. We're not here to regurgitate old points of view. We're here to see if we can move forward and find consensus. And that's what this political process has always been. I'll tell you what, there will probably be a bill that is in the middle of being passed when the clock strikes midnight. That does not mean that there couldn't have been more work as soon at 11:01 p.m. or a.m. That doesn't mean that would have not stopped, but it stops because our session stops. What we're saying is the legislative process, if allowed, would continue to move forward. This discussion, this work that we're doing will continue to move forward. It's not going to artificially end at midnight tonight.
And let me just say that's our last question. We've got work to do. It's still a lot to be done out there, so we've got to get back to work. We know you have interest in this. Let me just echo what the President and the Speaker have said. You know, we have committed ourselves to finding a solution, and we're the ones that can do it. It is our responsibility as leaders in this state to find a Utah solution. It would be very easy in a Republican state, as the Speaker said, to say, you know what, let's just do nothing. Let's just forget it. You know, it's not our issue. The people of Congress have messed this up and the Supreme Court and blame it on somebody else. The fact that there's a commitment here today to say we will in fact find a solution is an impetus to have this done by this summer. So again, I'm confident we're going to find a solution. We've had successes. Just during the middle of this session, what we call the grandfather clause opportunity has been given to us by the Department of Health. So we are inch by inch making some headway as we go forward. I expect we're going to make headway and find a resolution to this issue. That being said, I think this has been a really good session. I think we've got some really good outcomes of many issues. This will be one that will be a little bit delayed, but we're going to get this solved too. And so now we've got to get back to work. So thank you very much.